Josh, again, what's the biggest difference you think you have between Korean hitters and hitters in the U.S.?
The biggest thing that I've noticed just in watching some of the games, the way the game has changed. So I've been in Korea for 5 years now. A lot of Korean hitters go up with a mindset to not strike out. And I think that's a lot of the reason why I wasn't able to strike guys out early on, and that I needed to add a true swing and miss pitch. So the approach is a little different. It's a lot more contact oriented. There are some power hitters, but for the most part, guys are trying to get on base and run.
This one's for IP Sail. Outside of baseball, what are you looking forward to most about the city of Milwaukee?
What are you looking forward to about Milwaukee?
To what?
Milwaukee.
Oh,
The city.
what I think about the city?
Yeah.
I think it's great city. I like here. We had a dinner last night. It was fun. It was fun. It was quiet, And I just got here, so a couple of days that I'm here, I like it. So let's see when I come back from the city.
This is for Ryan. Who's the toughest pitcher to face?
Toughest pitcher to face. I hate giving pitchers credit. Corey Kluber is a pretty good one. The guy's got the ball moving all which directions. It's sinking, it's cut, it's rising, it's down. It's a tough one. Nothing's really repeating the same movement pattern, pitch to pitch.
These are for all you guys. Why do you want to pick for the Brewers?
Because they want to be. I think for me, just going through the process, meeting the front office, meeting the coaching staff, it felt like home. Meeting you fans has been unbelievable. You guys have been welcoming. So being a Midwest guy just feels like home for us, and that's important for us as a family.
What's the question? Oh, I think it's a great organization, and they like to win. So I like to win. They like to win. So that's what we're here for.
This is for Josh. In Korea, of course, you most likely have an interpreter. Is that something provided by the team, or is that something that you had to purchase yourself and probably be with you 24/7? So
The team provides an interpreter at the field for us for baseball activities, but once you leave the field, you're kind of on your own with the language. You just have to figure it out.
Question for Ryan. Have you been given any information about where you're going to see the bulk of your playing time, or which of the positions is where you spend most of your time? Where do you expect to play? Where should we expect to see you?
At this point, there's not really been a formal discussion in that regard. I think a lot of it's going to see me in spring, see that I'm healthy, and then really prove what I'm worth. I'm excited about that opportunity. For me, being flexible, the ability to play both first and third, I think will give me better opportunity, just being able to do both. At this point in my career, I'm not ready to say I don't want to do anything, because I'm a yes man and I want to do whatever it takes to help the ball club win. And the Milwaukee Brewers have won a lot over the last couple of years, and I'm excited to be a part of that.
Welcome to all of you, first of all, in Milwaukee. Looking forward to seeing you. This is for Josh. Are you looking for, with your going to starting pitchers, to be a little bit of a mentor to the younger guys? We've had a lot of pitching turnover recently, and we could really do some exciting pitching. Looking forward to you.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Just doing some research on the pitching staff. It's a young pitching staff with a lot of potential. And some of the stuff that I've been through in my career, I definitely think I can help a lot of those guys.
Avi, I wanted to ask you about being with the Rays during the postseason run last year. How valuable was that for you? Of course, you're coming to a club that did the same thing, but getting that experience, how big of a deal was it for you?
It was great. I think that's what we play. Well, that's what we play for the playoffs. I think it's a great experience. You play with everything. That's the real ball game. That's real baseball right there. So you play to win, just try to do your best. And I think it was a great experience. I've been with Chicago for 5 years, and I was, like losing. Now I got the opportunity to be in Tampa. So when we win, we play good the whole year. So I think I feel blessed for last year and to play in the playoffs.
Do they remind you a little bit of what this team's like? Culture-wise and everything else?
Oh yeah, 100%. That's make the decision even easier because I want to win. So this organization likes to win. So that's what I'm here for. And it's exciting to go to the playoffs. And it's different when you have in your mind like you went to the ballpark with the opportunity to win and you make the playoffs. So everything changed.
Be a lot of fun. Let's bring them out here. First up, let's bring out the guy who's writing all the checks for everything today, the owner of the Brewers, Mark Ananasio. Hello, boss. Thank you. Put you in the first one here. And then the brass on the baseball operations side, the president of the Brewers baseball operations, David Stearns. David, how you doing? The architect. His right-hand man, Senior Vice President of Baseball Operations, and Assistant General Manager, Matt Arnold. Hi, Matt. Arnie. We call him Arnie. He's a scout. And of course, the manager of the Brewers, Whitefish Bay native, Craig Counsell. Well, great to have you guys. We were just hanging out backstage. It's amazing all the decisions that are being made. Is there any breaking news, Mark, about anything that we need to talk about here before we start?
No breaking news.
Okay, good. I'm a journalist. It's my obligation to ask that question.
David, no breaking news. Right?
Is there any breaking news new?
Not yet. Still working on it.
Okay, good. Still working on it. All right, well, Mark, let's start with you. The way the off-season has gone and your role in this, obviously, with this collection of men next to you. Tell us a little bit about what the off-season's been like for you, what your expectations are.
Well, first thing we took care of in the off-season is extended the contract of the longest tenured manager in the National League, Craig Counsell.
There you go, Craig. That's big news.
Big news for us.
All the new faces, it's the same old face. Some of the changes, Mark, some of the new guys, as David has these conversations with you, and you start to look at personnel, and I know you're obviously heavily involved in the business side of things, but from a baseball perspective, you get to put your baseball hat on too and start to look ahead at what the team may look like.
So at the end of every off season, kind of depending on when we finish, for late October, early November, David and Matt get together with me and we talk theoretically about what we're trying to achieve. Number one, we're always trying to achieve having a competitive team, and I want to say we believe we have quite a competitive team this year, which we're still working on, but even as it stands, we believe we have a competitive team. And this year, and I'll let David and Matt talk about it, the pieces got put together a little differently. As Craig says, we always have good soup, but the soup is mixed a little differently. So we're mixing the soup a little differently this year, and I'll let the architects of that, I'll let the chefs describe that.
All right, Chef. David, what's this offseason been like for you? And the business of baseball, when you're building a roster, really doesn't start when the World Series is. I mean, you've been at this really going into last season.
That's exactly right. We've talked about this before. Our off-season preparation actually begins when we're right in the thick of the current season. So our off-season preparation for this off-season starts at the end of July, right around the trade deadline, and then really kicks up into August. And we task our evaluators, our research and development department, our entire front office to come to us with ideas about how we can improve our team, how we can sustain the competitiveness that we've been able to achieve here over the past couple of years. And And then as we get into the offseason, we try to narrow down all those ideas that have come to us into a couple of finite plans. You're never really sure how an offseason is going to transpire. You're never really sure what opportunities are going to be available for you. And so we want to make sure we have a couple different avenues that we can go down. And that's where we really generally get to by the time where we have that conversation with Mark and we begin to explain our thinking for the next 4, 5, 6 months as we head into the upcoming season. And in terms of this offseason in particular, we got to the point in mid-December where we had an incredibly active transactional 2 weeks, the most active transactional 2 weeks I've ever been a part of, certainly the most active transactional 2 weeks that we've had here since I've been here. We signed a number of Major League free agents. We made a big trade in bringing Luis Urias and Eric Lauer into the organization. And we feel like we've really, through these numerous moves, and there have been a lot of moves, been able to put ourselves in a position to once again compete in our division, compete for a division title, compete for playoff spots, and ultimately further our goal of ultimately winning the World Series here, and that's what we're all about.
When Matt Arnold comes out here kicking and screaming, he likes to stay behind the scenes. But maybe, David, you just set up what Matt means in this organization, how you two work together, and what he brings to the table, and then we'll put him on the fire.
Yeah, you can put him on the spot. But Matt, I'm exceptionally fortunate that Matt's been by my side throughout this whole thing. He was the first hire I made when I got here. He's been instrumental in everything we've done here and everything we've accomplished. And he's one of the chief architects of what we've done. We're fortunate he's still here. We came pretty close to losing him this past offseason. And at some point, he's certainly going to have that opportunity. We're very fortunate to have him, and he's been a big part of what we've been able to do here.
It wasn't health related. Matt was just fine. We almost lost him to another organization. Your name keeps popping up, Matt. I mean, you're one of those guys. Every time there's a GM job open, your name is there, and your role in this organization just keeps expanding. Now you're a senior vice president. Can you just comment on? We hear a lot about Mark, David, and Craig, but you're as much part of that as anyone. But that connection between this group and these levels that make all the decisions for this book.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun working with these guys, and it's just an honor to be a part of this group. And it's from day one we hit the ground running, and we haven't stopped since. So it's been a lot of fun.
But you have a scouting background, so we hear about the Brewers, they're a heavy analytics ball club. But one thing that David's introduced the idea of culture into the ball club with Craig Counsell, but also the scouting background. Give us a little bit of a sense of your role in the scouting side of things and how you prepare not just for major league players or trades, but also your own players and prospects.
Yeah, we're always evaluating. Actually, David and I were in San Domingo last week, so we're on the ground and spending a lot of time with our players at our academy. Working with our young guys, making sure that everything's going well there, and then the next thing, getting ready for spring training, and then on to the draft, and into July 2nd. So there's always something going on at scouting side.
It's a massive undertaking to put an organization together. You guys doing a great job. Glad you're here once again. Craig, extension. You're going to be here for a while. That's good. You don't have to sell your house just yet. That's nice.
Well, yeah, Mr. Arnold here. Thank you. I'm neighbors with Mr. Arnold, so I didn't want to move away from Matt. My dog likes his lawn. I might forget a doggy bag once in a while when I walk over to Matt's lawn, but I'm very fortunate. Look, I grew up here. I'm raised in a family here. I enjoy working with these guys, and I think the last couple of years we put ourselves in a position. We try to put ourselves in a position every year to give ourselves a shot. That's what you have to do. You got to give yourself a shot, and I really think the last 3 years we've given ourselves a real shot at it. And then now you got to keep doing it moving forward, and you break through one of the years, and something great really happens.
Back-to-back playoffs, unprecedented in the National League version of this franchise, and now the expectation has been set very high. Probably no expectation set higher than by this man right here. So as you guys start to build toward the season, what is the expectation all of Milwaukee Brewers baseball now. You three can answer that.
The expectation should be high. That's the standard we believe we've established here. It's what we set out to build. We want the expectations to be high. We expect our fan base to demand a lot from us, and it's our jobs to deliver. We believe we're going to have another very competitive team. We've talked all along here since I got here that our goal as an organization is to compete year in and year out. We want to be able to compete for division championships every single year. As Craig said, you want to give yourself a shot every single year. And if you give yourself enough shots, eventually you will break through and you'll have that really special season that goes down to history. And so that's what we're looking to do. We believe we are put ourselves in a position once again to have a competitive season. There are ups and downs in every baseball season. We've certainly lived that over the past couple of years. So we expect to have some fun.
Your expectations, Greg, how do you view that as you're looking at your roster that's being assembled? And we're a month of spring training games started.
Yeah, it's as high as ever is what I would say. I don't think it's any different than walking into the season, the event last year. We have huge expectations, and we're looking forward to just starting the process of, the ride, what I call, it's a ride for all of us, for you guys, the fans watching on TV. And there's a good week, there's a bad week, there's a bad weekend, there's a good weekend, but it's why we love baseball. It's the ride we're going to take, and we expect to end up in the last week of September, like biting our fingernails, playing really big games. That's why we love doing this, and we've put ourselves in that spot 3 years in a row. It has raised expectations, which is exactly what we set out to do. So it's once you do it, it's on you, and that's what you want.
Matt, every year, you need minor league players to deliver on some level, and we've seen that year after year. This is an organization that has been big on development. I know you're heavily involved in that. What would be your State of the Union on the Brewers minor league system, the kind of players that we may see in Milwaukee this year?
I feel really good about it. I mean, the one thing that stands out is we've been fortunate to graduate a lot of really good players the last couple of years. And Keston Hira, Trent Grisham, Brandon Woodruff, really, really impactful players at the major league level. And we have some really exciting guys coming, guys like Drew Rasmussen, Ethan Small, Antoine Kelly, and then several of the players we just saw in Latin America last week. Guys maybe off the radar, somebody like Hedberg Perez. His dad was a former major league player with the Brewers, so he comes from a great family, great pedigree, really exciting young player. And Eduardo Garcia is another very exciting young player, shortstop we signed a couple of years ago. So very athletic young guys we have coming, and we're excited about that group.
Great. Mark, when you hired these guys and David and Matt came in after the 15th season, you had a vision. I remember sitting here the first on-deck event when they were on the job, and you had a vision for what the connection between you, the general manager, the assistant general manager, and the manager would be. Has it lived up to that? And what are some of the highlights that you could reference about this relationship with you guys?
So, I looked at the fact that a lot of the success the Green Bay Packers had in continuity and communication among management, I was looking to achieve the same here. And I still have this image in my mind of the then 30-year-old David Stearns. By the way, still doesn't have any gray hair. And Craig Counsell, who still looks like he's 30 and still doesn't have any gray hair. Leaving the restaurant, Doug Belvin had put us all together. Leaving the restaurant, and Doug and I were going one way, and the two of them were going to have a drink together. And I'm like, I'm feeling very old here. It's like the kids are going to have a drink. And from that moment on, there's been a connectivity, and that side is part of the group. And one of the things I want to emphasize, which I think is really healthy, David and Craig have a very healthy respect for each other, but that doesn't mean that they always agree. But importantly, when they disagree, they kind of keep it between them, and I think that robust discussion is part of the reason for our success here. Appreciate all the hard work that they and all of their teams. Pat Murphy was bench coach, all of Chris coaches, other folks, and we've got 20 some odd people in baseball operations, just on site in Milwaukee.
probably about 30 right now in our offices in Milwaukee, and then including all the people we have all over the world, we're pushing 200. So we've got a robust operation, and everyone's been able to contribute.
I think everybody here would like to hear a specific example of when you and Craig disagreed. That would be really fun for us.
Yeah, I'm sure.
If you could just reenact that whole scene, that would be fun. How'd that go, Craig? I mean, it's a great lesson in how to argue. We don't always have to.
It's the easy one is just think about this situation. The tough one for me is always, David and I and Matt, after every game, we'll get together, and it's a time when I'm walking right off the field after the loss, and David and Matt very much respect this, but they're very measured because they've been thinking about a decision for quite a while. And frankly, you're still emotional 5 minutes after a game at times. And so that's been my learning, really, my challenge learning is that I gotta get rid of my emotion as fast as I can and get ready to have a big boy discussion. But sometimes having that big boy discussion so close to the game is definitely challenging.
Well done, Craig. Very politically correct.
Thank you.
See, now you know why he's got an extension. Excellent job. Very good. I mean, these guys are all competitors, and I've been fortunate enough to be around all of them. And Mark, you're too bad you're not a player because you're as competitive as anybody, and you come in and you have your thoughts too. How do you engage in conversations with David and Matt and Craig? Maybe when things aren't going well, and what's the positive side of that you can have these open conversations?
The challenge is, in the same way the character what Craig's saying is how to engage in a conversation so that you can have a robust discussion, but not put someone on the spot. Ultimately, I feel as an owner, my job is to be supportive of these men and everyone in the organization. So really what I'm trying to do is figure out ways to how to make them succeed rather than how to challenge them. So that's where I sometimes wrestle with things, and we'll try to find points of the season, like at the All-Star break, for example. After the All-Star break, everybody needs the rest to focus on what we need to achieve, and have conversations with each of them at key points in the season. And come September, we just let it rip. That's worked pretty well last couple of Septembers.
Yes, they do. They let it rip too. That's good. It's healthy. David, we talked earlier. One of the things you were known as an analytics mind, and that's fair. But you've also introduced the notion of culture, and culture matters. And I think you and Craig, and of course Matt, and from the top with Mark, but that's been something you've focused on as well, besides just the data. Can you explain how those two cross paths here and how it's evolved here in Milwaukee?
All right, I think that was probably a topic that Craig and I hit on our first discussion that night that Mark referenced. Is we do need to have a culture here that allows our players to succeed, puts them in the best position to succeed. And we've been able to do that somewhat through some of the players we've brought in, but a lot of it has been the work that Craig and his staff have put in, regardless of who's in our clubhouse. We've had a lot of turnover here, and it hasn't just been this offseason. We're a transactional organization. We have a lot of new faces each year when we show up to this event, when we show up to spring training, when we break camp and come back to Milwaukee for opening day. Each year there are new faces on our team. And so that puts a lot on Craig and Pat Murphy and the rest of our coaching staff to figure out how to make all those pieces come together. We've been really fortunate that we've been able to do that over the past couple of years because it is important, it does help our cause, and it does lead to wins.
Craig?
Yeah, I think David's right, but I also think this is the great thing about the Milwaukee Brewers. So, we've got a ton of new players this year. A lot of them are here. So their first introduction to the Milwaukee Brewers is this event, right? And this event, they've been at other teams at these events, but this event is better than other teams' events. And so they write they start. This is where they start to understand it. They understand who we are, what we're about, how they're going to get treated, and it's a great, to me, opening kind of remark for them to understand about who we are as a team. And we know we got a lot of work to do, and that's what we'll start out doing in about 2.5 weeks. But this is a great introduction for them to understand what the Milwaukee Brewers are all about. So thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I remember last year it was single digits outside, and the players, especially the new guys, you can almost hear like, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? What am I doing here? And as soon as they walk through the doors, they go, oh. And if you could have our perspective up here, just looking out over and seeing people and so many passionate fans, give yourselves a hand. You deserve a lot of credit. And because of that, we want to let you in on this conversation. So Craig Deshawn is here, Matt LePay's over there. If you have a question, find your way to them. I'm sure they've got you guys lined up. But let's start with Craig. He's got one. Say hello to Craig Deshawn first of all. Does a great job with the Brewers and the Bucks. Been around a long time. True pro. Great to have you, Craig.
Thanks, buddy. Good to be here, and good to be part of the Q&A session out here. And we want the fans just raise your hand. We'll get to you, and you can say your name and where you're from and ask your question. Okay?
Hi, my name is Corey. I'm from the Burlington area. Back in September, when Christian Yelich had his injury, I was fortunate enough to be at the same facility where he's being treated at, because I was going through the same thing. He expressed how much he enjoyed playing here in Milwaukee, being here in Milwaukee, playing for Coach Council and everything. So the question I have is that, have you guys took any steps in getting him locked up for the foreseeable future?
Good question.
You want me to repeat that question? That's easy question.
I figured that one would show up at some point during this session.
I'm going to sit back and listen.
I'll start, and certainly Mark can weigh in on this one as well. I think, look, Christian loves playing here. We love Christian playing here. And that's a really good base from which to start. We're really fortunate that we've got multiple years left with Christian here, and certainly we'd love to have him here forever. I think whenever you have a player of that caliber, that's the ultimate goal, and frankly, I think Christian likely feels the same way.
Got a player of that caliber, player of that character. Christian really embodies everything we look for in a player, and David said we'd love to keep him here for his career.
Good question. Matt LePay, what do you have? First of all, let's welcome Matt, the Wisconsin Sportscaster of the Year. Great to have Matt here. He couldn't be back on Brewers game. Great to see you, Matt. He's got a Badger game tomorrow now, so we'll be listening.
Yeah, wish me luck. That was a good first question over there. I don't know if you got one to top that. Fire away.
My name's Andrew. I'm from Northern Illinois, and I was just wondering, obviously Woodruff pitched amazing in the wild card game last year. What are your plans in a 5 or 7 game series on starting pitching?
Looking at
Who's your opening day starter, Fred? Let's start there.
I guess the good thing about that means we're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's a good start. So
It's funny, most people have been asking about September because we but the 5 to 7 game series, well, yeah, we're in the playoffs, so that's great. I hope, that means we've had a lot of guys pitch really well. What I think it also probably means is there's there'll be a name that we're not talking about here today that has probably stepped up, that we're not probably going to talk about in spring training to make the team, that has probably really stepped up and done something special for us. So I can't tell you who's going to pitch for us in October. I'd love to be there, try to make those decisions, but